Welcome to The Metal Voice. Today on the show, legendary drummer Doug Sampson, former drummer of Iron Maiden, current drummer of Airforce. Doug, what's going on?
Hi there. Yeah. Well, I'm in Holland at the moment. Yeah, we're gigging tonight.
So are you on some sort of tour right now? It's a mini tour or a big tour?
No, it's just a couple of gigs. We've done one last night, and we've got another one tonight at the Maiden Day in Sittard. Yeah, it should be a good night. Blaze Bailey's playing.
So, Doug, before we get into your new album, your new EP, the Blackbox recordings, correct?
Yes.
Before we get into that, let's just dive into your history and move up all the way to the present, okay?
Yeah, okay.
A lot of the Maiden fans, they just want to know, how it all began. How did you first meet Steve Harris? When was it? In which band? How did that all come about?
Well, it all come about. I answered an ad. I think it was the Melody Maker, which was an English music magazine, and it was after a drummer for a boogie band, which is like bluesy boogie band. I was 17. The boys whose band it was a little older, and anyway, I rung up, got an audition, turned up with the audition, and the bass player with this band was Steve Harris. We'd never met each other before. We didn't know anybody with each other at all. Done the audition, an old Savoy Brown song, I think. It was all that kind of music. And me and Steve just hit it off from the first go. We just really played well together. And the whole band sounded all right. So I got the job. I think they were taking a bit of a chance on me because I was an unknown quantity. I'd never played in a proper band before, just done stuff with schoolmates and that. So it was a leap a little bit further than I'd done before. So they took a bit of a chance, but yeah, and I got the job.
And from Smiler, when did Smiler break up and become Iron Maiden, or how did that transition all take place?
Well, we'd done a few gigs. We were quite successful really around the pubs and clubs of London. But Dennis decided he wanted to leave and try something else. I think he was after forming his own band. So with that, we all sat down and thought about trying to get another singer in and all that. And Steve at that point decided, he said he was going to go off and do something of his own. He was going to form his own band. And he said to me, "Are you interested? Because I'm going to go and form a band." But at that time, I said, "No, I'm going to have a break from the rehearsal and all that and get myself sorted out with financially. We'd get a job and one thing and another." So I said, "No, I'll pass on this." And that's what happened. Steve went off and, as you know, he formed Iron Maiden.
Were there any songs from Smiler, riffs, ideas that sort of melted into Iron Maiden as the first album or the first two albums?
Well, the only song that I can remember Steve coming up with is Innocent and Exile. I can't remember anything else that we actually played that with Smiler, but I cannot actually remember anything else. But there possibly may have been, but I cannot remember any others, because it was a very bluesy, sort of boogie sort of style of music. We've done a couple of ZZ Top songs and that sort of thing,
And so when did he ask you to join Iron Maiden? At what point?
Well, this happened, and then Paul Day left and Dennis Wilcox took over the vocals. We done a gig. Then he had Thunderstick was playing drums for him at that time, and they'd done a gig at the Bridge House, and that particular night wasn't the greatest gig that they'd ever done. I realised afterwards the reason why was they had issues. Dennis was about to leave. He'd had enough, and it didn't go the way Steve really wanted it that night. So I was in the audience, and after the gig, Steve came over to me and he said, "Look, Dennis is going. I'm not really happy the way it's gone tonight. Are you interested in joining the band? I'll collapse this one and we'll restart. It'll just be you, myself, and Dave Murray." I said, "Yeah, let's go for it." Yeah, no problem.
And when you were watching Iron Maiden, when you're watching Iron Maiden back in the olden days, the early years. What did you
Right.
make? What did you make of the band? I mean, okay, Dennis Wilcock. I mean, I've heard him saying it's not, he's not the greatest vocalist, but I mean, what was the band like?
It was. I thought it was awesome. I mean, it had energy. Uh, Dennis being what Dennis is like, he had blood everywhere and swords coming through his mouth and masks. It was very theatrical. It was fast. It was different to what was around the pubs at the time, and it was packing out the cart and horses week in, week out. I probably saw all the gigs down there, so probably knew the set before I even went to an audition, or went for a rehearsal, because I knew most of the songs just through watching them so many times.
And at that point, okay, now you're in the band and you start rehearsing. And what songs were you working on, or new songs, or old songs? What was the rehearsals like?
At that point, we was working on the standard Iron Maiden set, which was Prowler, Sanctuary, Iron Maiden. I'm sure we were doing Innocent Exile, Charlotte the Harlot. We were working on Phantom. I'm not sure if they played that live before, but we were working on this new song. It was a fairly new song at the time. But yeah, I mean, I can't rightly remember all of them, but it was most of the stuff off the first album.
So you're rehearsing, you're playing with Iron Maiden, and I guess at this point you're auditioning Paul Dianno?
Yeah, I met up with a chap down the Red Lion in Leinster High Road, and he said, "How's the band going, Doug?" I said, "Well, it's great, but we haven't got a vocalist." He said, "Well, one of my friends, a good friend of mine, is a vocalist." I said, "Well, we're rehearsing tomorrow down Scarf Studios. If you want to drag him along, feel free." So the next day, on the Sunday, this chap brought along Paul Dianno. He came in. I don't know what we'd done with Purple Number or something. I really can't remember, but I knew we were knocked out by it. And from that minute, he was the vocalist for Iron Maiden.
What did he bring in regards to vocals and frontman, in your opinion?
Well, we didn't really see him as a frontman at that particular time. He just came in and done his singing, but we heard a phenomenal voice, one that really suited the band at that particular time. This was a different league. This just took it in a completely different level. So that's when and he got the job, obviously.
A few words. Tell me about Dave Murray as a guitarist.
He was just amazing. I didn't know him until I joined the band. I just used to go and see him, and his style and energy and he was just brilliant. I can't say enough about him. I think in all the time I've known him, I don't think I ever heard him do a bum note. I used to do this thing at the end of the show where he'd play it with his teeth, and I enjoyed being on stage as much as a member of the audience, because I thought this was phenomenal, brilliant.
What about Steve Harrison? What about Steve Harrison
Sorry?
early days as a bassist and songwriter?
When we played together with Smiler, he was a good bass player. When I auditioned for Maiden, he had gone to the 10 levels higher. He had really, really changed. His whole bass playing style was like the beginning of what he is now. It was like in its early days. So I had to jump in and up the game really quickly, because it really was at another level. Yes, yeah.
And now that the band is rehearsing, you're starting to play some gigs, and then the Soundhouse tapes, the famous Soundhouse tapes. Can you tell me about the recording of the Soundhouse tapes?
We were rehearsing. I don't think we'd even gigged at that point. And Steve said, "I really need to get a demo tape together so I can put it around the clubs and pubs." So I said, "Well, we'll all pay in, we'll chip in, and we'll go to this place that Dennis had recorded at, Spaceman Studios, I think New Year's Eve." Yeah, it was great. It was the first time that me and Steve had been in a studio, but Dave had done a bit of recording before, so it wasn't too daunting for him. But Yeah, I can remember doing. I mean, more than anything, I can remember doing Strange World, and my personal memories of that was like it was just so haunting. It really, the old studio just took on a different feel. It was really, it was quite eerie, really. And when I hear it now, it still brings back memories of that recording session. So Steve gave a copy to Neil Kay, who was the DJ at the Soundhouse in London. And I think he gave, he said, "Oh, well, have a listen." And I think he just said, "Oh, yeah, you and about 400 other people, Steve, like, just go with it anyway." He took a copy, and about 3 days later, he's got on the phone to Steve saying, "Oh, this is brilliant. This is one hell of a demo." He absolutely loved it, and then he just started playing it as a demo at his heavy metal Soundhouse disco at the time, and it was just taking off. And he actually had a chart that Sounds, the music magazine, had asked him to do a chart on requests, and it was coming in that we were getting to #1 virtually every week with one of these songs off the Soundhouse tapes. So people beginning to notice, especially record companies, beginning to, what the hell is going on here? We're up there with bands like Montrose and Judas Priest, and what's happening? So that's what really got us in the public eye, I think, thanks to Neil, really.
Why wasn't Strange World included on the original Soundhouse tapes?
I think I don't know if it was a matter of space because it was only a 45 vinyl, or the fact that I think they only wanted 3 songs, and I think it was best, being that Strange World was the only, like, the slowest one that Maiden ever done at that particular time. We wanted to showcase the power and the speed of what we normally do, and we threw that one in, like, to show there is another side to Iron Maiden, but it didn't reach the vinyl or the. I don't actually know why I wasn't a part of that decision, but I think that's what it was about. They wanted to showcase the fact that we were what the band was about, which was like energy, speed, heavy, lots of energy.
Did you have your hand in writing any of these songs or any input?
Not really, no. I mean, Steve, most of these songs were already written the time I joined, so it was just a matter of putting my own drum style into it. I had no influence on any of the writing at that particular time.
What about Sanctuary and Rothschild, which appeared for Metal for Mothers, right? Those tracks later on. What was the recording like for those songs?
Yeah, that was. I think that was the first time we went to the EMI studios to do them. Yeah, that was a different league as well, because this was not a demo. This was like in a proper studio. And that was. Remember it. That was quite a jump from what we've been doing. I remember we stayed there, I think, right to the early hours of the morning, and me and Paul and Dave were just crashed out in the corridor of the studio and slept on the floor. And I don't think the executives that were stepping over us could actually believe what they were seeing. But I think maybe too many lagers might have had a little bit of an effect on us on occasion.
Burning Ambition, part of that recording sessions, or when was that recorded?
That was a different session when we put the first version of Running Free down. We've done it with a guy, and don't think what I can remember was particularly happy with how it came out. But Burning Ambition was all right, but I don't think I was terribly happy with how it all came out. So that's the one that survived. I think I'm still around the version of Running Free, but after I'd left, they re-recorded it with Clive.
Were there any recordings of Iron Maiden that never surfaced?
Not to my knowledge, not while I was with them. Everything I've recorded has come out at some point. I've seen it out at some point.
Right now you have Running Free, Phantom of the Opera, Remember Tomorrow. These are the songs that really weren't in the early years. So these songs are sort of formulated when you kind of came into the band. Did you have your hand in, any of the first album songs or second album songs?
I would say Running Free was the only one that I had a major input of, because I was messing around in the studio, in the rehearsal rooms, I was just messing around doing glam rock, sort of mud, sweet style beats. And I was playing this beat and generally just messing about. And Steve came in and started putting a bass line to it. It just started off as a joke that it might have, how I saw it. And then Dave came in, and then I thought, hang on a minute, I think we've got a song here. We've just got possibilities. Got the structure of the song down. Paul went off. He had some ideas, and I can remember him just sitting outside on some steps, just jotting some words down. And he came back, and I thought, yeah, this song, we've got a song here, and it's worked. And it just came out of me messing about, really.
Okay, cool. What about Remember Tomorrow? Do you have any thoughts about working on that?
I wouldn't say that was something that evolved in the studio. We all started playing about, and Steve had an idea, and then just jammed away until it manifested itself. Yeah, that came about when it was with them.
Were you around when Dennis Stratton was auditioned and he joined the band?
No, that's funny, because I'd left. I'd gone, and Dennis got the job as a guitarist. I knew because I'd seen him week in, week out at the Bridge House in a band called RDB, Remusdown Boulevard, but I never actually met him. And he was a great guitarist. Whether he was right for Maiden, I don't know, but because I'd actually gone by that time. But the funny thing about it is, I only actually met him 3 or 4 weeks ago at a British Lion gig. And we just looked at each other, recognised each other, but that was the first time we'd ever met. And it was quite surreal, really.
So tell me about, you're in the band, you're recording with the band, everything seems to be gelling, everything seems to be going well. At what point did either you leave or the band say, okay, we want you to leave, or what happened? How did it all end? How did you part ways?
Yeah, we were doing more and more gigs, and we were living in the back of a lorry, we called the Green Goddess. Coming off stage soaking wet, getting in the back of the lorry, freezing cold in a sleeping bag. This went on for a couple of months. In the end, it got to a stage where it was beginning to affect my health. I sort of had a virus, feeling rough the whole time. It was just like the more gigs we do it, the worse it was getting. And it got to a stage just before Christmas, and I said to Steve, I don't know if I'm going to be able to carry on doing this. He said, well, see, just carry on to Christmas, and then we'll have to have a chat. So we got all the gigs away, got them all out of the way, and we had a meeting, and I said, well, I think it's time that I went. So that's when I left.
Doug, looking back, do you think the band should have waited for you, or you should have said, look guys, just give me a few more months just to get myself together? Or, what do you think?
Oh, definitely not. No. It should have happened how it happened, definitely, because the window that they had to get that band going the timings really needed to be right at that point.
Okay. Looking back, looking back at the first album comes out, how do you feel? I mean, are you proud of them, or does Steve call you? I mean, is there some connection that you still have?
When I see the albums, yeah, of course I'm well proud. Yeah, anything that to be associated with it is I'm very proud of, especially my small part I played in the beginning. I find that I'm immensely proud of that era, and funny enough, people do remember it.
So after that, Airforce, how that started up after Iron Maiden?
Yeah, I came out of when I came out of Maiden, I hadn't done anything for a while, and I met Chop Pitt, and he said, "Come come down and have a jam. You know, just a jam really, just to get me back playing. I hadn't played for a while, so we had a couple of sessions. That would be with me, Chop Pitt, and Tony Hatton, and we done a couple of demo songs, and I let Steve have a listen, and he said, "Hey, you've got something here. You might, you know, why don't you go for it? Why don't you do something more serious?" So we sat down and decided, let's go for it. So that's when we got my brother in, Sampson singing, and we put down 3 tracks, one of which is on an album called, I don't know what it is, Origins of Iron, which was done by Andy Holloway and Erwin Lucas. They put it out, and it was one track called War Games, which is more keyboard orientated. We had the use of keyboard player at the time. It really went well. I mean, we didn't get the record contract we really wanted, but we got plenty of work, and that's what we really needed, the work around London, you know. So we started doing more gigs around the pubs and clubs of London. That lasted for a while, and then my brother left, and we got another bloke in called Rolf Pommel, and the band took more of a rock angle. Then we split for a while, and it was like last year or so we decided we'd get it back together again, and that's where we are now.
Tell me about the new album, the name, and when it was released, and your tour.
This one, the Blackbox recordings. We've got 3 tracks here, two new tracks, and one that's been around for a few years called Heroes. People really love it. Goes down well live. Everybody seems to love that song. And now it's just beginning to build the momentum of the band. Still got 3 main members. We've got a new vocalist now, so that's put a completely different edge on it. He's more of a metal singer, so we've got a little bit harder edged than we were. Over the next few weeks, we're going back in the studio to get part 2 of this done. We hope that will be out maybe before or just after Christmas, but we are then working on an album where it'll include all 6 numbers, all 6 songs, and more new ones. But that's for the early part of next year, hopefully. We're going to be doing the Burfest. That will be next year. It's all money goes to Clive Burr Foundation for MS. We're doing that, and I think Architects are playing it. Architects of Chaos are headlining on that one, and then we've got a few of our own shows. We're doing. Fun enough, we're going to do the Cart and Horses where Maidens started. We're doing that the 29th of October, so that should be a good night. I haven't been in there since Smiler days because I never actually played that place with Maiden, so that should be a good night. And then next year we've got a few gigs coming up, and hopefully go to America for a few. That won't be a tour, but that'll be a few gigs from friends of ours that are out there. So yeah, it's all coming up.
Would you ever consider reuniting with Paul Dianno, Dennis Stratton, and a few of the other older Iron Maiden, the legacy band?
It's funny you should ask that, because there may be a possibility that we actually do something with Paul. Hopefully, that would be a great honour to do something with Paul. Nothing confirmed yet, but that's very strange that you should ask that question. But yeah, that might be something for the future, actually. Fingers crossed. That's what I'm hoping for. He's the man. There's no 2 ways about it. Paul's the man. So hopefully it'll all work out. I really hope so. If you do speak to Paul again, send him my regards, and hopefully everything will work out in the future.
Thanks, Doug, for being on The Metal Voice.
Brilliant interview. Thank you very much.
A new EP that's out, a new album that's going to come out in a year, I guess, or less than a year. Some shows, Burfest. Doug Sampson, former drummer of Iron Maiden, current drummer of Airforce. Catch them on tour, pick up their album. Thanks for watching another edition of The Metal Voice.